That was a good shot.
I feel like I'm.
It is 6 o'clock and tonight we're going to be having an informational session regarding the bus route changes. And I believe Monica, our city clerk, will be working on this for
Yeah,
us.
so because our mayor is newer and we have a couple new council members, I thought it would be a good opportunity to review our proposed changes. I would note the city council had approved this concept in 2019, and we delayed the implementation of the routes pending the installation of the new transit shelters. And you may have seen just last week, we have gotten some of those shelters installed, primarily at the 2 hubs that we'll be using at Maplewood and then on Menard Road near Walmart. So if you get a chance to go look at those shelters, they look nice. We'll have a total of 15 installed at 13 different locations throughout the city. Just a little history on Winona Transit. The way that our current routes operate, I did provide our current schedules. All of our routes terminate at 3rd and Center and go out to the all 4 corners of our city. These routes have not significantly changed since they were implemented in the mid-1970s. You'll know we have added on to each route, but the farther out the routes go, the longer those routes take to complete. And where people go now is much different than where they were going in the 1970s. So more people, as you may guess, are traveling to the east end of town where Walmart, Menards, Fleet Farm, all those facilities are, as well as they're still going to Winona Health and the hospital, Hy-Vee, which used to be Westgate shopping area. So we did a survey about 4 years ago, and one of the top concerns from the current riders was that the routes were taking quite a long time to get them to their final destination. So what we're proposing and what the council approved in 2019 was to overhaul the routes so that we have 2 routes going across the town. These are in the proposed routes are in with your agenda item 5.2. So 2 routes cross the main part of the city. That's the green route and the yellow route. And they're crossing the city going opposite directions. So they will still meet up at 3rd and Center, but then one will continue going east and one will be going west. The blue route now will become a router just in the west end of town and Goodview, and the red route would be a circular or router in the east end of town. So all of the routes run on a 30-minute loop and meet up at the 2 new hubs, one at Maplewood, and the second one, as I mentioned earlier, is on Menard Road near the Walmart parking lot. So what I wanted to kind of go over for you is we did tweak the proposed routes a little bit so that it's a little bit easier for people to get to those key locations. So some sample trips that I mapped out somewhere would be if you are currently at Maplewood Townhomes and you want to go to Hy-Vee, if you look on the current route, you have to go on the green route all the way downtown to 3rd and Center, and then on the blue route back out to Hy-Vee. And I think I mapped this out, and that route takes 42 minutes. On the new routes, they would hop on the yellow bus, and that would take them 4 minutes. If they want to go to Walmart, they would today go on the green route, transfer downtown to the red route, and that also takes about 42 minutes. On the new system, they would get on the yellow or green route. They could take either route. So they have two different options. And that route currently it would take 41 minutes. In the new system, it would take them 25 minutes. So if you can imagine, if you want to go get groceries, you may not want to wait around 45 minutes for the next bus to come. This way there's two buses coming to Walmart every 30 minutes. So you're going to get a bus back across town in a shorter, the route itself takes less time and your wait time is less. So a couple changes, and Amy, any other big, that's the main benefit is that you can go across town a lot quicker and there's two different buses that cross town.
And then adding in extra hubs allows for more transfer options versus just the only transfer option you currently have right now is downtown. With us adding in those other transfer hubs, you can transfer as many times as you want, and that's free to people to transfer, so it's not an additional cost.
And if I remember correctly, you added some additional stops that originally we weren't geared towards, like some of our city facilities or
Correct.
closer to some of the parks. So if kids can get on it or get to school.
Right.
We added some things for families that
Right.
use it as transportation.
Yes. So just a couple changes from I also provided for you the 2019 approved routes, and just a couple changes, primarily on the yellow route. Originally we were proposing that it would make a loop going west on Service Drive to go past the Winona DAC, and then it would get on 14 and go to Maplewood and make that loop to downtown. The disadvantage of that is if you're at Maplewood, you'd have to go downtown and back to get to Hy-Vee. So we switched it so that it will go directly from Maplewood to Hy-Vee and, the Westgate shopping area. The other change is we had it originally traveling west on Gilmore and bypassing the Winona Mall on the outbound, but now we've made it so that it goes past the Winona Mall and Gunderson Clinic on both the outbound and inbound.
Monica, can I ask, are there standards, either state or federal, that we're applying to this sort of route so that we're being as fair as we can and capturing as much of the population and the work and shopping centers, or is this a design of our own, or help me understand where this comes from?
Sure. So there are not standards, but kind of best practices on how long a bus route should be.
Okay.
And a 45-minute loop is not acceptable. You want
Obviously
them to
as
be
short as possible is what we all want, but
closer to 30. Obviously, because our city is long and skinny, we can't cover the entire city with just 4 routes. So we're covering the majority of the city. You'll know we're still not going into Valley Oaks. Doesn't cover a lot of Goodview like Wee Valley.
Sure.
So that's where our Dial-A-Ride service provides the service, the transit service. And we just try to map out where a majority of people are riding the bus to, and obviously it's going to be the hospital, major employers, and major shopping areas.
gotcha. Thank you.
Monica, there was a committee put together to help design these routes. Is that correct?
We have a newer transit advisory committee that reviewed the routes.
Okay.
But the routes were designed primarily by Amy, Luke, and myself using our software that we purchased a couple of years ago called Remix.
Okay.
So it's a mapping application that will help us with the demographics. So it overlays census data, and we can say what % of the population is within a certain distance of these routes, and it
To
will
me,
give us
this
that data.
incredibly makes sense. And it
Mhm.
seems like it's much more efficient for the riders. And I'm assuming we probably even save gas on this.
Um, Probably not, because the buses will be running the same number of hours.
They're still running the same.
But it's definitely more efficient for the riders and that makes sense.
Definitely
I think it's
quicker.
long
It
overdue.
provides more opportunities for the riders. So instead of running across town every 45 minutes, it's every half hour. So there's more runs that will get you across town. And we're hoping that because it provides more routes, that we will get more riders.
I'd say thank you and nice job.
Thank you.
Amy and
Monica, I saw one of the buses up on Garvin Heights today, which obviously would never be on this route. So that makes me believe also, because of part of our agenda item, that people are taking advantage of the dial ride system, and we're extending the hours and the use a little bit, because people are actually starting to pick up on that program and realize that for late night working or getting from where you are, if you're
Correct.
shut in, you can use it.
And, the dial ride was implemented late 2018. So we really only had 2019. The night service was added May 1st of 2020. So in the middle of the pandemic, so we didn't do any advertising for dial ride. Now with the new routes and new fares that we're proposing, we intend to do a lot of advertising in the next month or two, meeting with agencies like the ORC to help train their clients on how to utilize the new system.
Just anecdotally, I was over at Westgate shopping area, and I heard a Boston employee talking about how one of them, they had designed the schedule so that their employees could catch the bus, even though it was not a normal schedule for an employee. So I think a lot of the people on this route that have employees that make use of it are probably going to be pleased that they don't have to try to figure out a system where one person's coming and leaving on these 45-minute windows. So I'm not sure that they're aware that this is coming, but I just kind of overheard them having that conversation, and I thought this is perfect for that exact scenario. So I'm just pleased we're finally going to be able to implement it.
What are the dotted lines on some of these?
So those are that route. Are you looking at the previous ones?
Green
Yep.
and red has a little.
So there are, during certain times of day, the route will, what's the right word? Flex
Alter.
or alter. So on the red route, it's to pick up clients at the ORC
Mhm.
and get them to the transfer station or transfer hub a little quicker. Trying to see where else.
So a lot of times there's dash lines when we don't go into those areas because those businesses aren't open. For example, like the ORC is not open at 6 a.m. So it really doesn't make much sense to go in there and do a whole lot of pickups because we probably wouldn't have any riders and things like that. And so a lot of
Correct.
times we'll try to find an alternate location in which to alternate a different stop at that time and whatnot.
Okay.
Another example is Southeast Tech.
Okay.
Sure. So when is this being implemented?
So we're proposing that it would be implemented the Tuesday after Labor Day. So Tuesday, September 7th. Minnesota MnDOT require, and I'm not sure if it's a state rule or a federal rule because there are a lot of rules. We have to give 30-day notice to the public. So we will be publishing the official notice in our official newspaper, and then we'll do advertising. So we'll have more than 30 days of advertising. And will be available to, if people want to sit down and go through how do I read this or how does it work? All the drivers will have extra training because it is quite a big change. For the passengers, the fares will stay the same. Our hours and days of service stay the same. We are in a separate item recommending an increase in the dial-a-ride fares to meet our grant requirements of a 20% local match. We need to increase the fares a little bit to make that financially work.
Are you deviation increase too?
Yes, and we're also proposing an increase in what's called a curb stop deviation. And a deviation is on these 4 routes. If a rider is unable to get to the route, they can call and request that the bus do a curb stop deviation. And that is currently only an additional 50 cents. We're recommending that that be bumped up to 75 cents. So our cash fares are still, similar to what all the other systems are in Minnesota. And they, of course, are much lower than taxis. And I guess I don't know for sure what Uber are charging,
Yeah.
but
Monica, at the bus stops, will there be like a QR code, or will this schedule be posted so people can find the schedule and the routes?
so what we're looking at doing is if you're on the blue route schedule would be shown as well as the maps. We don't have those printed or ordered yet, but that's the plan, is to have at the shelters, the schedules would be posted. At the regular bus stops, it'll just be the bus stop sign. Right now, our bus stop signs just have the little T.
Mhm.
And we're looking at changing it so it's Winona Transit, and it would be in the color that the route is.
Gotcha. Good.
Any other questions or comments from anyone?
And I would also just point out that all the mapping or the layout was done by Jeannie in engineering. So she makes everything look so nice. And Amy did a lot of work with the timing to make sure things, like she's out there driving.
So just take into account trains.
Yeah.
I'm
I love that. One of the things I will say that we did that's a little bit different is if you look at the old route map, you have a timetable for each color on that route, and there's really no uniformity. So if you look at where it says downtown on the blue, and you look at the departs downtown at 6:28, 7:13, there's no real uniformity. And that's one of the things that we try to do with these new routes going forward. So if you look at the new schedule, on the green route, it's always going to be at Maplewood at, the top of the hour. It's always going to be at, 2 minutes after at Kramer and Orange. So, and it's going to be like that every hour of every day. So once people get used to their stop, like, hey, I want to get picked up at, Kramer and Orange, I know that it's always going to be at 2 minutes after that the bus is there. And versus, a lot of people call in right
Right.
now, okay, what time is it going to be here? It's just not uniform. So
Right.
hopefully with some uniformity, this will make it easier for riders to remember or plan their trips and stuff too.
That's good. Awesome. Good job.
Got something, Steve?
Yes, Mayor, Mayor and Council, just for a system that's been around since shag carpet. Once you start to make these changes, you should expect to have calls and contact from constituents that are concerned because it's going to be different. So I would just ask for some patience on their part. Let's see if it's better. If it's not, if they're seeing something, they should let us know here at City Hall, and we could take those ideas they might have into consideration. Although I know it's rather complicated because we were looking at, well, if it was one block over or one block this way, it really does make a difference. So it's not totally inflexible, but it's pretty tough to change. But we may have missed something, and we're certainly open to hearing suggestions that people would have. But we need to run it for a while and make sure that it's doing the way we're doing, operating the way that we think it's going to operate.
Cool. All right.
Great. Well, thank you.
Walk around and stretch.
Yeah, thanks everybody for the work that was put in on this, and we'll reconvene in about 10 minutes here.